Hey guys, welcome back to Go for Wood. Today we are talking about HP in Unity. Let's hop into it.
Alright guys, so today I'm going to show you how to make a pretty simple HP system in Unity. So I have my player, and then I have three little enemy blocks here, and when my player walks into them, it's going to delete the enemy block and add some damage to the player. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Alright, first thing you want to do, go ahead and create a C# script. Call it whatever you want. I called mine player. This is the one that's going to be attached to your main character. And go ahead and drag it onto our player. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is make another script, and you call it whatever you want. This is my enemy, but in your game it might be a bullet or something inflicting damage. So go ahead and call that whatever you want. So just go ahead and attach your enemy script to all three of your enemies. Alright, first thing we're going to do is go ahead and hop into our player script, and above the start function here, we're going to add a variable, a public int, and we're going to call it HP. And I'm going to go ahead and set my HP equal to 100. That's pretty typical for games. And then I'll also go down in the update here and say print, and we're going to go ahead and have it print our HP. But you can also use this print. So print, by the way, print and debug.log is pretty much the exact same thing. It's just going to print or log a message to this down here, this console. And what's inside these parentheses is the message it's going to log. So since I typed in a variable here, it's just going to log the value of this variable to the console. But we can also add additional text around it. So we can put quotation marks there, and we'll say HP is, and I'll put a space and a plus. So now in our console, when we're running our game, it's going to say our HP is, and it's going to say the value of our HP. Then the next thing, go ahead and hop into our enemy script. And below the update, we're going to create a void on collision enter. There it is, on collision enter. And if we double click it, it'll autofill this out for us. So you may remember from previous videos, we have talked about on collision enter before. So this variable here, I'll talk about it. Since this on collision enter is inside of our enemy script, which is attached to our enemy, that means that if our enemy collides with our player is going to be under this collision, or whatever our enemy collides with. If it collides with a wall, then collision will be the wall. This is the variable we have to access whatever it has collided with. Alright, so then in here we will say if collision dot game object dot tag is equal to, and you might notice I put two equals here, where in some other variables, like in our player, there's just one equals. So the one equals is setting a value. So like here I set HP equal to 100. Two equals is checking a value. So we're checking if the collision.tag is equal to what I'm going to put in here. We'll say player, if it's equal to player. But we're not setting the tag equal to player. Alright, so if the tag is equal to player, we'll put brackets there. First thing I want to do is destroy this object, because we don't want this to run multiple times. So destroy, and inside we will just say transform, which is the current object. Or we'll say transform.gameObject, so we want the game object to be destroyed. So the other thing we want to happen if our player collides with these enemy objects is to lower the player's HP. So to do that, we need a reference of our player. So up here we will say public game object, and we'll call this, we don't want it to call it player with a capital P, because it'll think we're talking about this. So we'll call it player with a lowercase p. Alright, so then we'll go down here in our on collision enter again and say player dot get component. And one thing to mention about get component is this has to be game object dot get component. And since player is a game object, that works. But what I'm saying here is if player wasn't a game object, if it was like a transform, then down here we would have to say player.gameObject.getComponent. Alright, just thought I'd say that. So if player.getComponent, and we're going to get the player script from it, player, and then two parentheses on the outside, dot we need our HP. And we will subtract it by, let's say, we'll do 34.
Your weakness is copper? You're kidding, right?
And then another thing we can do, just for kicks, is we can go into the player and say if HP is less than or equal to 0, well, then we'll print player is dead. He has fallen. That actually sounds way cooler. I'm changing it. Player has fallen. All right. Now if we hop back into Unity, we need to make sure to assign all the things that we referenced. So we'll go ahead into our enemy, and all three of these we can shift click them and drag in our player for the player object there. We also need to make sure that our player is tagged because we referenced a tag to it, and it was a capital P player. That's a default here too, so we can just use that. And I think that was all we accessed. So if we go ahead and push play, then if we move our character, and I didn't show you guys how to move this character in this video because I did go ahead and make a video on that. Go ahead and watch my movement in Unity video if you're wondering how to move your character. But if we go ahead and walk into one of these red blocks, you'll notice nothing happens.
Direct hit, but no damage.
And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is because none of these are rigid bodies. And when it comes to collisions, you want them all to be rigid bodies. So we'll go ahead and highlight all of our enemies and click Add Component Rigid Body. And we'll go ahead and keep everything as it looks right there, except for collision detection. We don't want this to be on discrete, we want it to be on continuous dynamic, so it's constantly looking for collision. Then we'll go ahead and pretty much do the same with our player here. The one thing is I will go ahead and turn off use gravity for my player and turn this to continuous dynamic. Now if we go ahead and run this again, you should be able to see that when we move our player and we collide with an object, whoa, my player's floating off. It did lower our HP, however. I think we can fix this. We'll go ahead and have our player use gravity. And we'll go back in. And now if we collide with our other player, it has deleted our enemy object and our HP is now down to 66. If we collide again, our HP is down to 32. And if we do it one more time, the player has fallen. Alright guys, that's pretty much going to wrap up my video on HP. If you guys want to know how to make like a HP bar or make it look better, I can make a video to do that. Leave a comment down below on what other tutorials you want me to do and subscribe for more content. I'll see you guys next time.